Hi and welcome to the D's channel. Here I am back again showing you how to install a sink of all things. This particular sink has an open shelf base, so therefore you can see everything, all the connections underneath, and everything has to be really precise. I'm obviously measured this out way before the ultimate fitting, because there was brick slips and everything else to do, and flooring, underfloor heating, so I made a decent guess at the height. Now you're never going to get it absolutely correct because there's always going to be variables on the amount of adhesive you need for tile and underfloor heating and leveling off the floor properly. So it was a challenge. It was a good challenge. I enjoyed it. And like all challenges, I would like to challenge you guys to maybe throw me a like and a subscribe, or a comment down below to help me with the channel so that it can grow a little more. I've had a great response and I'm finding that the channel is well on its way. However, as you all know here on YouTube, every little click helps. Without further ado, let's get into the sink business, and then I shall see you after the main bulk of the video is done. Thanks for watching. Catch you in a bit. So here we are. Just setting the sink base up against the wall. And now on to opening the actual sink. I'm just using a Stanley knife very carefully. Bit like an unboxing really, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, out with the bits of packaging. The amount of this stuff I throw away is unbelievable. And then straight out with the sink, just lift it right out of the box in one go if you can. I rest it on my feet so I don't chip it against the floor while I move the box. And then again, very carefully take off this bubble wrap on the underside of the sink, simply because that way I can't scratch the surface of the finished surface of the sink, which would be rather important. So it's a stone resin type sink. Just lift it into place and then checking the position of the trap just to make sure I've got it pretty much more or less there. It is an adjustable trap, so it will give you about 50 millimeters downwards from the bottom of the sink extra if that's needed, which I didn't really. This is the black waste, and then we have a rubber seal going on here. It is tight, and the wastes have become better in the last number of years. However, I still like to use silicone as well. So with that said, push the sealing rubber up as far as you can, just so you're not messing about trying to put it in place after you've whacked a load of silicone on, because you will get it all over your hands and then all over the porcelain ware. And this one I could have used white or black silicone. I had black silicone because I just finished putting in the screen, so I decided to use that. It's not really a place that you can see. However, with it being such an open sink, it is something that I like to try and get right. So small amounts, enough to seal the threads and the exit of where the waste comes through, but not so much that you have to then start smearing it all around the joint and stuff like that. As you can see, I'm just putting a small amount. It's not coming out or anything out around the rubber. And then put on the threaded washer, which goes underneath like so. That tightens up as far as you can by hand, and then because it's ionized black, you'll just need to get a pair of grips on it and do maybe a quarter turn or half turn to tighten it up nicely so it's seated, so the rubber is seated against the base of the sink. Cue the pair of pump pliers in a second. And as you can see, I'm actually holding the back of the pump pliers to make sure that it gripped properly first, and then did the quarter turn. So now there's a little rubber washer that goes in the top of that trap. Pop that in and connect the trap in place. Do make sure at this point that you don't have like silicone over your hands and stuff like that, because there is such a finish on these metallic parts that really getting a big smudge of anthracite silicone or white silicone or any type, or any of the gunk that you use for the for sealing up any of your plumbing stuff, is going to take a lot more effort to get it off afterwards than it is to, you know, take it off your hands before you start tightening up nuts and stuff. So just keep that in mind. As you can see, there is quite a lot of depth on those traps, so the waste in the wall could have dropped another 50-60 mil without any problem of the trap actually connecting up. So all I'm doing there is, that's the metal waste. Again, I believe it was really hard to cut. It was stainless steel. I'm just taking a moment to clean all my copper pipes coming out of the wall, make sure there's no cement or adhesive residue on them, simply because, again, when you try to do your seal with your olive, if you don't do things like this, then you run into problems later on with pipes and joints leaking. So I'm using an abrasive cloth. It was by Rothenberg. I believe they've stopped doing it now. Most people use wire wool or these cleaning strips by Rothenberg. If you can get them, they're very, very good. I still have a pack left from about 1.5 years ago, so I'm quite lucky. At this point, I'm just taking the excess plastic pipe off with my little multi-tool. Fantastic yoke, I use this all the time. And then taking off the burr, even though it's just plastic. Good practice, take off the burr with a Stanley knife so you don't have residue on that entrance piece. So last little clean. And we'll be ready to mount the next piece. It's always good to be thorough in these little points. So put the pipe in, turn off the water, make sure you turn off the water, and then remove the stop caps off your pipework. I think there was a little bit of pressure behind that, but it's only a very, very small amount of water. Easy to clean up. Anyway, onto the isolation valve. As you can see, there's an arrow. This is important for these arrows. These are 15mm to 1/2 inch isolation valves. And I'm just marking back on the copper pipe where I want the isolation valve to sit, as close to the wall as possible. However, still leaving enough so I can get my olive and my nut and some plumber's gunk on. I'm using a Rothenberg 15mm pipe slice, which will cut the copper nice and even. And all you do is put it on the mark that you've chosen and twist in a clockwise direction. And to take it off, if you have missed the cut mark, you just push it in an anti-clockwise direction, and it'll pop off, allowing you to reset the pipe slice. Now, because these tail ends are into speed fit connectors in the wall, they turn, so that's why I'm holding the end with a pair of grips. It's a waste end, but it stops the pipe from turning as you're trying to turn the pipe slice to cut. And again, just showing you that the arrow pointing outward, flow direction, is very important. So now I'm putting the 2 first olives on, nut and olive on each piece of pipe, and then using a plumber's sealant for hot and cold water and also central heating, but most importantly it's for potable water, which is drinking water. So you're not putting any poison into the system as you're sealing these joints, which is extremely important. Gets, put a nice piece on. Doesn't have to be tons, or it just has to be a couple of mil all around the olive. And then as you squeeze that isolation valve onto the nut and the olive, that paste will go into the interior side of the olive and make the joint watertight. The olive basically squeezes onto the pipe and stops any movement or possible movement outward by water pressure, so that the isolation valve stays in place. And obviously the first few turns you do by hand to make sure that it's going on correctly and you're not cross threading threads, which if that happens, then well, that's really problematic. Because then you have to, if the olive is squeezed in any way and the thread is crossed, then you have to get a tool called a de-oliver. to take the olive off and take the nut off, if you can do it. That's a long and, well, unhelpful process. So after you've put them on with a few turns with your hand to make sure it's threaded, speeds up the process as well, then give them a last squeeze with the grips. Take off the nuts that are on the other end, close off the valves, and then turn on the water. And you do this at this stage just to test the pressure so that your joint is tight and your isolation valve is holding. There isn't really much more to it than that. Just, I guess, due care and attention. So, I must have run off and got my piece of pipe. I'm going to put the waste pipe in first because that's the most sort of awkward piece to do. I've gone and cut the pipe obviously at this stage and put on the little concealing disc of where it goes into the wall. Put on your washer and put it all together. Tighten it up again. You know, make sure that you haven't got any gunk on your hands, because you're going to be messing around with this for probably about 10-15 minutes, getting it absolutely straight. If you don't get it straight, chances are it's going to leak. So best to spend a little bit of time on it and have a leak-free trap, I guess. And then again, these are the two flexi connectors for the hot and cold tap. Hot is left, cold is right. As you can see, I am putting these on, threading these on by hand first, and then after that, after I know that the threads are on properly and they're not misaligned, I will grab my tools and tighten it up. So, and as long as you grab the isolation valve and hold it nice and tight, you don't have to squeeze it so hard that you kind of crush the body. Not that you should be able to do that because it's solid brass, but you'll stop it from moving and therefore scratching. One last thing I do is just give the flexis a little turn to make sure that they're correctly in place, that they haven't unscrewed from underneath the tap, and then open fully the isolation valves. And at that stage you should be able to pop up, turn on the tap and have running water. And the main thing you do at this stage is run the water and test everything for leaks. Check it, double check it, triple check it, but make sure that you don't have any water escaping from the waste pipe or the joints, or obviously the water going in. And that's it. Easy. So there you are. That was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure for me to make it. If you have any comments, you know, throw them down below and I will get back to you. If you've got any suggestions for a video that I could do, then you know, scribble that in. Otherwise, a like, a subscribe and a share would be amazing. I've had loads of views on certain videos, and then other videos not so much, but you know, that's growth, I guess. I really look forward to doing the next video, and I shall speak to you soon. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Catch you later. Bye.